are going well. My name is Phil Drendall. I'm going to be kind of running this session. Throughout the session, if you have questions for our panelists, feel free to throw them in the chat. We will try to get to them as they come. I'll start with a couple of questions that we typically get from incoming students and interested applicants. But at any point, we will leave time at the end for any questions that you have. So we'll go ahead and get started. A brief rundown here of what we're going to be doing today. So we'll give a quick welcome for our panelists here. We'll talk a little bit about our admissions team, but then dive into our current students here on the panel. I have a couple of questions, as I mentioned, but then of course leave time at the end for your questions. And then we'll just quickly go over some application deadlines and housekeeping at the very end. But I guess I will introduce myself here first. My name is Phil Drendall. I am an Associate Director of Admissions here at Notre Dame, working with the MBA program, but I am also a resident of South Bend, a native of South Bend. I grew up here on the south side of town, went to high school here, Trinity High School, went to Notre Dame as an undergrad, moved away for about 10 years to South Korea, but then came back to town about 4 or 5 years ago now. So I quite enjoy South Bend enough to at least come back and live here and start my career here. Since I don't have a career path or anything like that, figured I'd throw a couple of my favorites here. So my favorite restaurant in town is, I can choose between two. So Crooked U is right on the St. Joe River. It's actually a brewery and restaurant, barbecue restaurant, but very creative with their food choices. And actually, any beer there and almost any food can be made gluten-free and also vegan if you ask them. So for all of those with dietary restrictions, it's a great option. Also, Jesus Latin Grill is a Latin American restaurant that is awesome. Their mezcals and margaritas are fantastic. And my favorite hidden gem here is the Indiana-Michigan River Trail. There's actually a paved path that goes all the way from downtown Mishawaka, our neighboring city, up to Niles, Michigan. It is an amazing path that's always has bikers and joggers and walkers with dogs and all that good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and let our panel here today introduce themselves. But first, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our admissions team, our staff here. So our Director of Admissions, Maria Stutzmani Marquez, she leads our fantastic team. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by my colleague Cassie as well. Cassie, you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, thanks so much, Phil. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us. If you want to drop in the chat where you're calling in from, we always love to see where people are located, but excited to get to know you throughout the admissions process. So Phil and I tag team MBA admissions. So we're in the trenches right now of round 2. And so this is an exciting time for us as we build next year's class. So back to you, Phil.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cassie. Many of you have probably already been in contact with Amy Dame. She is running the emails on the back end, answers a lot of the logistical questions. And Annette Tisver, she also has probably contacted many of you, talking about the program, encouraging you to apply. And then Rebecca Wood is our marketing manager, portfolio marketing manager here on the team to round it out. But without further ado, our two guests of honor today, Manny and Katie. We'll go ahead and start with you, Katie, if you wouldn't mind giving a quick introduction.
Sure. I don't know about guest of honor, but
yes, you are. You are.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Katie Kern. I am in my second year of the 2-year program here at Mendoza. My hometown is Chicago, Illinois. And this summer I spent at IBM as a senior brand sales specialist. My major is business analytics and digital marketing analytics. One of the nice things about Notre Dame is that I believe 5 of the majors that you can pick from are STEM designated. So that's really, really cool and really like a distinction that Notre Dame has. And my post-MBA plans, I'm going to go back to IBM as a senior technology sales specialist. What's funny about IBM is that you will never have the same job title for like more than a year or two. They always like to change job titles, but it's virtually, you're doing the same thing. But the why you're all here, the big reason why I chose Notre Dame is that Notre Dame felt like a program that was collaborative, but also, competitive. One of the things that we like to say in my class is that we're internally collaborative and externally competitive, because I didn't want a program where I was going to have to constantly fight everyone to have my voice heard or to get this project or to, have this opportunity. I wanted it to be a more holistic approach, not so cutthroat. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about Notre Dame, and the professors, the faculty, your fellow students really want you to succeed, and they will do anything they can to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Really appreciate that. And Manny, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling a little about why you chose Notre Dame as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I am actually in the 1-year program. So I didn't do an internship, but I have been working for almost 7 years before I joined the program. I am originally from Antigua, Guatemala. I did my undergrad at BYU, Brigham Young University, in the Idaho campus, and worked for Goldman Sachs for a while, and then for Walmart. I decided to come to Notre Dame. Well, there were probably 3 main criteria, and one of them just is in general for why I chose to follow an MBA. But Notre Dame is, my Christian values really align very well with Notre Dame. And what Katie said really resonates. The collaborative atmosphere here is just outstanding. If you have ever worked in banking or consulting, cutthroat is not gonna cut it for you. That's it. You cannot do the job by yourself. So if you don't know how to work in teams and you don't know how to be a good team member, you really would have a hard time succeeding in those environments. Even though, investment banking, I was there for a while, and it has the reputation of that. But since the 2008, this is what my bosses told me. Okay, since 2008, it's not like that. Before that, I don't know. I cannot attest for that. But the other part of Notre Dame that I really enjoy is that growing the good in business is not just a slogan. Like professors really, really hone it on you that we are here to make the world better. And that may sound a little bit too, I would say that like not cliche, but it is the truth. We are really trying to make good in business. And you can see it in our classes, in our everyday interactions with our classmates. And the last part, that why I chose Notre Dame, that one actually applies to other programs, but I was very focused in a 1 year program. And if you look at, highly ranked universities, they don't have a lot of 1 years if you don't have a master's degree already. If you have a master's degree already, you have a couple more options, but I didn't have a master's degree. So that's the other reason I chose Notre Dame.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Manny. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't talk about why I chose Notre Dame. So coming from the area, going to school at Notre Dame, working at Notre Dame, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to kind of see Notre Dame from 3 different perspectives. I don't think I quite knew what I was getting myself into when I chose to go to Notre Dame. As an undergrad, I knew that Notre Dame and the South Bend community, the two are very intertwined. Neither would be here without the other. Support throughout the years. Notre Dame was founded in 1842. South Bend was already an established city at that time as well. Don't tell anyone from South Bend that it's a college town. They will not be happy with that. South Bend is its own entity. We have our own industry. We were very much known for auto manufacturing, especially the Studebaker car company. If you've heard of that, from South Bend. Hummers and AM General, originally from South Bend as well, and have kind of grown from there as well. But going to Notre Dame and now coming back to Notre Dame, it's the people, it's the community here. Everyone supports each other. The collaboration between the town and the university, South Bend and Notre Dame, is continuing to develop and continuing to grow, and just seeing how everyone supports each other, how everyone is invited everywhere and welcome everywhere. MBA students can play intramural sports or join undergraduate clubs, and take part in local organizations and volunteer service. It's just something that I really admire and wanted to give back, because that was something that was instilled in me throughout my time here at Notre Dame. But we're going to start with a couple questions about life in South Bend. The first question for Manny and Katie that I have for you is, where do you currently live? I'll get a lot of questions about housing and where students live, and then what are some bright points, I guess, of living wherever you do live. So Katie, we'll go ahead and start with you if that's all right.
Sure, not a problem. So I currently live in the Foundry, and the reason I picked the Foundry is, and I'm sorry, it's an apartment complex that's very close to campus. That was my number one, was commuting time. It takes me 5 or 10 minutes door to door, but I spend 5 minutes outside, which in the dead of winter was really important to me. I'm from Chicago. I did my undergrad at Wisconsin. I know how bad the winters can get, and I am just not here for it. So that was the main reason why I chose the Foundry, was just proximity to campus. What I really like about living in South Bend is there are a ton of like really great restaurants and different types. Like my friends and I, we've been to, Vietnamese restaurants and hibachi restaurants and Indian restaurants and Mediterranean. And there's just so much like good food in South Bend. It's insane. So that's one of the really bright spots I found in South Bend.
Awesome. Thank you. Manny, how about you?
Yeah, so just a little bit of a plug with where Katie lives. That place is really pretty. Like that place in town, like I go there sometimes in between classes. We go with my friends and just eat, because there are restaurants in the first floor of those apartment complex that Katie lives, and it's just a very pretty part of town. I live in a place called The Landings at Notre Dame. This is owned by the university. I don't know the definition of dorms, but these are not dorms. It's for married students. I have 3 kids, so I have a 3-bedroom apartment, and I pay $1,100 for it. I have never paid that low of rent, even when I was an undergrad. So it's very cheap. I'm pretty sure the university subsidizes quite a bit of it, but I don't ask too many questions when it comes to that. So I'm happy for the price. The apartments are brand new. I have there is a place called the Resource Center, which is actually where I'm at right now. It's like the lobby, but they have a bunch of, like, I don't know how many of you have children, but they have a bunch of toys and things like that we can come and play, and it's really fun actually. So we come quite often. And let's see what else. The South Bend area, I do love the restaurants as well, and actually Phil took my favorite one, which is Jesus. Jesus it's a Latin restaurant that has like food from all Latin America, but it's not just like street tacos though. It's like, I am from Guatemala, so you have the street tacos part of the culture, I guess, but you also have the higher end, and they have the higher end. Like the Peruvian ceviche it's very nice, and the presentation, like the chef is a professional chef, and it's not that expensive. I mean, it's average. It's, I think, like $15 a plate, right, Phil? It's not cheap, but it's good. And there is another place that is Venezuelan called Caracas. That is outstanding Venezuelan food. I love it. I'm not from Venezuela, but I have a lot of friends from there. And my favorite type of food is Chinese. So there is a really good Chinese place here called Fu Ho. That is actually almost across the street from me. So kind of dangerous that it's there, but we buy it quite often. So it's
Awesome.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I guess to kind of go off of that, you said like the price at the restaurants. We have a lot of restaurants here, right? If you ever find yourself at Caracas, get one of their milkshakes. I know it's like not traditional food, but they are insane with like a piece of cheesecake on top. It's ridiculous. But cost of living in South Bend is something that we talk about a lot. Manny and Katie, you've lived, in Chicago, in Arkansas, in Idaho. around the country, how would you say the cost of living in South Bend compares to maybe other areas that you've been?
Sure. Manny, you want to go first?
Sure. I was almost going to say to you go first. The cheapest, this is probably the cheapest place I lived in. I lived in Florida, a little bit in New York. San Francisco was probably the most expensive place I lived in. Idaho was cheap, but not this cheap. And Utah is expensive these days. So yeah, South Bend, when you think about well, before I came to the program, I had my spreadsheet, right? Like I assume a lot of you guys have. And when I compare the cost of living with the price of the program, I mean, you get the best bang for your buck. For real, like it's very low. And then you compare it to the type of education you are getting and the opportunities you have, the companies that come and recruit from here. I've had the chance, so my opportunity was a little bit, I guess, unique because Walmart gave me an offer to come back before I left the program. But then two companies were kind of like aggressively seeking me. And I felt really good about myself. That was amazing, but it wouldn't have come just because of me, it's because they have the Notre Dame network and they know that we are good students, that we are good people, we have good values. They don't have to worry about us doing some crazy stuff at work. I was thinking about something I just excluded from the conversation, but like they don't have to worry about our values. And I think that's very attractive to a lot of employers. What about you, Katie?
Yeah, so I will say the Foundry is a bit more on the expensive side. Some of them are brand new, but they're not affiliated with the university and they can charge a premium because of how close they are to the university. So from a rent perspective, I would say it's comparable to what I would pay in Chicago. However, from a grocery and gas and restaurant and the other, things that go into total cost of living, South Bend is very affordable. You can always find those like higher end restaurants if you want to go out for like a really nice meal. And if you do want to, I suggest Rose Lily. I got that from one of my finance professors. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But there are the more affordable restaurants. There's a ton of grocery stores. There's a Trader Joe's right at the end of my block. There's a Martin's that's a very short drive away, and that's like your general grocery store. So from a total cost of living, I would say, your rent, if you choose to live in the Foundry, is going to be a little bit higher, but your other costs are not going to be as bad.
And I think you bring up a good point. A lot of the apartment complex is very, very close to campus, like the Foundry and Overlook and things like that. They can come fully furnished. They reserve places, they reserve units for graduate students. So it definitely is a convenience thing. In the Foundry, the Eddy Street Commons area, there are lots of amenities and they're constantly upgrading as well. And like Katie mentioned, it's 10 minutes door to door to your classes, which is pretty nice there as well. Thinking about activities or community that you are involved with outside of the MBA, are there any groups or organizations or activities, hobbies that you participate in, either outside of the MBA on campus or in the South Bend community?
Katie, you got it.
Okay. Yeah, no. So me and a few of my friends from the program have started to go to this yoga studio in South Bend, and it's called Bend Yoga, and it's in a basement beneath a brewery, and it is wonderful. Like we'll go, they have a restorative yoga at like 4:45 on Sunday. And so you just go and it like sets you up for the rest of your evening and for the week. That I'd say is like my big thing that I participate in. However, I will say a lot of my friends participate in the intramural basketball. And last year, there was a pretty fierce competition between the MBA team and the Masters of Accountancy program. They had a huge rivalry. They ended up in the finals against each other. It was a big deal. So there are, really fun things like that too. We
Who
also,
won, Katie?
what?
Who won?
Oh, we won, obviously.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Obviously.
Good. Yeah.
We might have drafted somebody from the who plays on the women's practice squad from the PhD program in chemistry, but that it was just one person and it's fine. But and we'll do like the all campus things. They've got some really fun stuff on like Library Mall that you can go and participate in. And Mendoza puts on a lot of really fun events too. Like we have a welcome back event next week for all of us that will have iceless ice skating, which I'm very interested to see how that works. But there's really a lot of fun things to do both at the university and outside.
Awesome. Thank you. Manny, how about you?
Yeah, so with me, it's obviously more geared towards family. There is a basketball program for my kids. I have twin boys who are 7, and it's called Upward. It's a very nicely organized program. It's at I think it's a Methodist church, like 20 minutes from here. Something I didn't realize is how close Michigan is. So that's actually that's technically in Michigan. But it's a really good program for kids, and I was going to mention the sports as well. My friends are in soccer and volleyball. They made the finals for volleyball, but I actually don't know if they won. So I need to ask about that.
I thought the soccer team won.
The soccer team won, right? I think the soccer team actually, there were 2 NBA teams.
There were 2.
They both played the finals. So I mean, when it comes to intramurals, the MBA program is pretty good.
I was on a staff team that played the Masters in Accounting basketball team, and they ended the game by dunking on us. So I'm glad the MBA held up better there. As far as South Bend itself is concerned, Katie, you alluded to the South Bend winters, and I think it's something, the location of South Bend is a question that we get a lot. For some context, South Bend is about an hour and a half away from Chicago, an hour and a half east of Chicago. We are about 10, 15 minutes from the Michigan border, so the very northern part of Indiana. We experience all 4 seasons, although recently when those 4 seasons occur is up to anyone's guess, but the winters are one thing that we always hear about. What advice would you give to people that maybe have not experienced a South Bend winter and are potentially a little nervous?
Absolutely. No, that's a really good question. So I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm a bit of a baby when it comes to the cold. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But, part of the reason why South Bend gets this reputation for winters is something to do with the amount of snow that they get. And because I'm from Chicago, I'm going to get a little technical with you. So there's something called lake effect. And so whenever the systems move over Lake Michigan and it's not frozen, it'll evaporate up in there and just more snow will dump on South Bend and the surrounding area, including Michigan, than in other places. So it's a quantity thing. But what I will say is that the university does an excellent job of clearing pathways and salting and just making it very walkable. When it comes to the cold, I would say very rarely does it go, below 20. Very rarely are we in, single digits, 10s, things like that. But for people who aren't familiar or comfortable with those winters, I would suggest purchasing a long coat, something from like an LL Bean or, a down alternative, something that's long, that goes down to like your knees or below your knees, just to really protect yourself, and invest in a set of decent boots. I know a lot of people were wearing like a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll buy, they'll get both rain boots and snow boots. So it's a single boot that'll be good for both. And then you just add extra layers of socks when it's cold. So that way you're not purchasing two things, because we do get quite a bit of rain here as well. But that's really, an umbrella, rain jacket, you're fine. So it's very manageable. And you have a couple months when you get here to prepare for that. You're not going to come and it's automatically going to be snowing. That doesn't happen until, November, December. So, and people from the area or, your fellow classmates from cold weather climates can help you kind of decide what to get and how to do things.
Great advice. Manny, I'll let you briefly touch on that as well, but we also have a question here that maybe you can answer in the chat regarding international students that come to South Bend and kind of how they're able to get along in the community, and how they're able to adjust to life in South Bend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was trying to check and see where you guys are at, and I don't see anyone in the West Coast, but I did my undergrad in Idaho and then worked in Utah for a while. Over there, the cold is extremely different. That lake effect that Katie talked about, I wasn't familiar with. In short, the cold here penetrates your skin, okay? The cold over there is dry. The cold in the West Coast, in the desert, you have a lot of snow. Right now they have like probably 10 feet of snow easily, and great resorts to go. But over here it's cold, but it's very cold, like 32 degrees, may feel like 0 over there. That jacket that Katie talked about, I actually have a decent jacket. Like, this is not like a crazy, but then I have a sweater underneath, and I'm fine. And I'm fine with it. And also that pair of boots, I got a Sperry boots right before the winter, and they are rain and winter boots, and they're perfect. So and they're like $40, like they're not really expensive. Yeah, but nothing to complain though. Like, I don't mind the cold actually. So I'm fine with it. And I like that there is not a lot of snow on the ground, because it's dangerous to drive if you have snow. So I don't mind that. The part about the international, I have like, you can hear my accent, right? Like, I don't blend very well. Like, everybody can know that I'm international when I walk into a room, and I felt very welcome in all aspects of the world. I never felt excluded. And I'm talking about the community, right? Because that's given. I can tell you that's given with Notre Dame. Like, we are very international. Like, my program, we have a lot of international people. We come from very different backgrounds. So that I mean, that's a given. The Notre Dame program is very welcoming in that aspect. The community is also very welcome. South Bend is actually a bigger town than what I thought in the beginning. So you do have bad parts of town and you have good parts of town. And I cannot tell you much about the bad parts of town because I avoid them. So I don't know about that, but just have to be smart, like in any place that you are.
Yeah, I think that's true. And every town is going to have a good part of town, a bad part of town. For a little bit of factual context, South Bend itself, South Bend proper, has about 125,000 people in it, 100,000 people. But St. Joseph County in Indiana, which includes some neighboring towns, some suburbs, Mishawaka, Granger, has around 275,000 people. So it's not a small town, it's not a massive town, but as far as cultural and racial diversity within the town, South Bend itself is quite diverse. I think for all of St. Joseph County, which includes some of the suburbs and the farmland, I believe we're about 75% white, about 15% African-American and Black, about 10% Hispanic as well, but South Bend proper is a little bit more diverse than that. And Notre Dame, we have students from all around the world here as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Notre Dame's been around since 1842. South Bend's been around for a while. So the town is very accustomed to Notre Dame students living there and interacting there as well. A question here regarding, and I know that we're coming up to the end of time, so we'll just do some quick hitter questions here, just some quick answers. Typical weekend in South Bend, what would you say you do on a weekend?
Sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you're busy.
Yeah, I do tend to sleep in on the weekends because it is an intense program. But it can be anything. Like if it's a game day weekend, you are up and at 'em because game day at Notre Dame is just, there's so much stuff to do. But you could go for a walk along the river, you could meet your friends for lunch, you could, spend the night at one of the like cocktail bars in South Bend proper. So there's a ton of different options. Anything that hits your fancy. If you like the nightlife, we have that. If you like to do stuff during the day, also have that. So pretty much anything you want to do, you can do it. I spend a lot of my weekend sleeping, but that's me.
Manny, how about you? Typical weekend?
Yeah, something that resonates is, like you probably don't choose Notre Dame because it's easy. It's not, like we do have intense classes, so I do like to rest in the weekends. But that football or sports culture, in my undergrad, our football team is decent, but it's not Notre Dame. People are crazy here when it comes to football. Like it's exciting. There are so many things to do. A bunch of private jets flying in. It's really a different atmosphere. Experiencing football here is really cool.
Absolutely. And we also have other sports, basketball, hockey, soccer, lacrosse are all highly ranked as well. Like I said, we're really close to the Michigan border. So Lake Michigan and the beaches there are only about 45 minutes away. There are lots of breweries, wineries, distilleries as well. If you're into that, like I am, lots of new opportunities and stuff like that as well. Great food options. Another question here, maybe we'll make this our final question, with internships. So a lot of your internships for the MBA happen outside of South Bend. What does housing look like during an internship? And Katie, you can answer this one.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depends on the company you pick. So like, for example, for IBM, they gave me a stipend for moving to Chicago where I was for the summer. So that's how they did that. I know for other companies, they put you up in a specific like corporate housing type thing, and other places didn't give you anything. So it really depends on the company. The company will work with you. And, all things considered, the company wants you just as much as you want them. So you should be able to negotiate something with them in terms of housing, because they want you there. They want you to work. So they should give you something. And if they don't, talk to your career counselors, because that could be a relationship issue.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Katie. I know we're running out of time. We're a little over, so thank you everyone for joining us. While I talk about these next deadlines and next steps, Manny and Katie, would you mind putting your email addresses in the chat, please? If anyone has questions about life in South Bend, life about the 1-year MBA with Manny, the 2-year with Katie, or anything admissions related for Cassie and I, feel free to reach out. But deadlines, so we just passed our round 2 deadline earlier this week. If you are in a position that you can actually submit your application by the end of the day today, we will accept it for round 2. But for everyone else, round 3 deadline coming up March 14th. It's about 5 or 6 weeks from the time that you submit your application to the time that you get your decision. Fairly straightforward virtual interviews. You can see the dates here. We'll be adding more dates too as more applications come through. So those are by email invitation. Keep an eye out on your email for that. And then finally, as a thank you for joining us today, we want to give you all an application fee waiver code. Make sure to use the code IrishWeb, all one word, all capital letters. This will make it free for you to apply. But we also host a number of other online events, spotlights, webinars. So if you would like to attend another event, mendoza.nd.edu/events. If you'd like to have your questions answered, send us an email here or reach out to Katie and Manny as well. And when you're ready to apply, there's the link. But thank you all again for joining us wherever you're calling in from. It's been great speaking about South Bend with you. We did record this session, so we're going to try to be getting it up on the web relatively shortly. But if you'd like to see the video, send us an email and we will send you the link to view it. But thank you again so much. Manny, Katie, great to see you both as always. Take care, everyone. Stay safe,
Thanks.
stay warm, and go Irish. Bye, everyone.